Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You're back at the parking lot. The stoke is high. You're talking about bikes, tech, nutrition, fitness. That's what we do each week here on the Ride and Laugh podcast. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Oh, Danny, I'm doing so good. It was such a good week of riding. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. Also, some good rides and some really interesting rides and some new things to share. So yeah, that's always exciting. That's always fun. Listener, thanks for jumping on with us, and gratitude and appreciation. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we are commenting on podcast number 39, the antidote to mountain bike survival mode. You're not the rider that you think you are. And that was also our Halloween episode. So it was supposed to be scary, and it really just kind of turned into we're all unlimited and anything is possible. Right. And but we did throw out there, what rider would you want to be if you could be a rider for a day? And it didn't have to be a mountain bike YouTuber. It could have been a racer. And you and I talked about who we really wanted to emulate. Yeah. And we had some of our wonderful listeners comment on a few that they thought would be really fun to be for a day. And Denny Janetti, MTB, YouTuber and listener, said 100% would be Sam Pilgrim. There's no one who is so happy to ride bikes and be alive quite like Sam. Plus, the ability to throw some sick backflips would be cool. And Sam Pilgrim's a great one. I mean, talk about a high vibe guy. Like, he is an amazing rider, absolutely amazing rider, and always just having fun. And then his videos always have all this like kind of wackiness. That was the one where we saw the what do we call it? The old style bike with the big giant wheel.
Penny farthing.
Yes, the penny farthing. Yeah, he mountain biked on the penny farthing. Not many people are doing that sort of thing. I just started getting into Sam Pilgrim not too long ago, actually from your recommendation, and you're absolutely right. He makes some of the funniest videos. I mean, if you want like a good time, you just want some entertainment, like Sam Pilgrim is definitely where it's at. And he's a remarkably talented rider. I forget what his background is, but he must have some like pro background, right? Oh yeah. He's like a ridiculously good rider, and he rides with some of the elite pros in the world. Yeah. And you can see he's friends with these guys. You can see him riding with these guys. And if you have the volume on, he's just riding with so much joy and laughter and fun. You know, he's just like a kid. He's just like a kid going out and playing on bikes, but with all the talent of a pro rider. Yeah. I like that. He's really good. He's really good. And also, while we're talking about Denny Janetti MTB, check out his channel, because Denny did a great video called Why E-Bikes Are the Future of Mountain Biking. And he credited Ride and Laugh and Sage and I for the inspiration of the topic. And he has some very interesting perspectives that we hadn't talked about. So check it out. I thought it was really well done. And Denny's a small channel, but growing. And he's got the sky's the limit. Denny, you're unlimited. Yes. And Mark at POV Trails, another great listener. I'd probably choose any top 10 World Cup downhill rider. I once heard that a guy was showing a mid-level pro his local trails, and when the pro took the lead, he dropped the local in about 2 seconds on trails that he's never even seen. That level of riding is impressive and a level I will always strive for. Don't we all, Mark? I've ridden with people where they don't know the line, they don't know the trail, and they somehow are just a million times faster. It's crazy to see. Yeah. What's your experience? Have you ever ridden? Have you ridden with a pro? I think you have. Oh, we both have. It was the opposite of what Mark was saying, in that they both knew the lines, and so we were at a double disadvantage. But when we went to Glen Park and ran into Evan and Sean, and we had no idea that they were pro level riders, both of them. I mean, Evan races pro. Sean won like, what was it? The Mass Series, whatever. Like, they are very good riders. He does very well. Yeah. But Evan won Pro Open, I think. I mean, I think he just won straight up the year before that. Yeah. At least that's what Sean told us. Yeah. And they were there practicing for the Glen Park Enduro. And we just happened to run into them. And my gosh, it was eye-opening how quick these guys were. It was
it was really something to see, Danny. I learned a lot from that, and it was inspiring. More than anything, it was just like, wow, okay, this is what we can get to. If we put in the work, this is where you could get to. Ooh.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we've ridden with Evan several times since then because he's a Mount Penn regular and we see him all the time. And he's like he's Sam Pilgrim-esque. He's like one of the friendliest, coolest, chillest dudes.
Really is.
Everything on the bike is super easy. So he's just like always laid back. He's always just popping wheelies and manuals and front stoppies and jumping with crazy stees. And I mean, everything's just like very easy to him. And so we've ridden with him a bunch of times and I can never keep up. I mean, he always disappears almost right away, effortlessly.
I was thinking of somebody else though, Danny. We went to South Mountain and we ran into Jeff Lanowski.
Well, yeah, I didn't think of Jeff because he didn't outpace us, but he certainly outclassed us as far as how he was riding that trail. Yeah. I mean, I was actually just talking about that the other day on a South Mountain ride where, and I pointed out Hobart Trail to the guy I was riding with. And, you know, it's these ridiculously steep, it's ridiculously tight downhill switchbacks that to the average rider look impossible. Okay.
Yeah.
And then as the story goes, and you could look at the trail stage video, what's it called? Your trail stage video?
Outbossed. I got outbossed.
Outbossed.
Trail boss.
Jeff Lanowski is the trail boss. So it was outbossed on Hobart. Hobart is a double black diamond technical downhill trail in Arizona off South Mountain. And Arizona, like double blacks are very legit. The black diamonds here are very legit, but it's a very, very difficult, very exposed trail. And so Jeff would get to these switchbacks and just like calmly put his tire wherever he wanted it, down the ledge, on top of the ledge, and just stop and just pivot the rear end of the bike out perfectly. It was smooth. It was effortless. It was amazing. It was beautiful. My jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I personally hit the dirt like 4 times on that ride. I didn't get hurt, but there were just so many like slow speed switchbacks where if you've ever done like a downhill switchback, there's that moment of like, yeah, I totally got it. Or you're totally just going to fall on the ground.
Yes, I know. Oh my God.
And I can't even make a lanky joke here because Jeff's like 4 inches taller than me. He
out-lankied you. Yeah,
he's not lanky though. He's not lanky though.
That's true.
He's tall, but he is not lanky. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
As if like the lankiness is the problem.
Right. Yeah, that was the issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I was too thin. If I had put on some more weight. It is amazing though, because his bike is humongous and he's doing these like really small, you know, we talk about not wanting a bike that's too big because of slow speed tech.
Right.
And he's just doing everything just effortlessly on a gigantic bike. And he's a gigantic human being and also an awesome dude. So definitely check out the video if you haven't seen it. But yeah, that's a good one. Jeff Lanowski that was an amazing day.
I mean, we have been pretty fortunate to meet a lot of really cool people. And I think the big takeaway from me is actually how cool and approachable everyone has been. You know, you have this like weird like thing where you see people on the red carpet and like, you know, it's like, oh, you know, and that, but this is not that. Mountain bikers are cool. And every single person, no matter how good they were, how talented they were all really, really nice to us. And we certainly were not at their level and they didn't have to be that way, but everyone's taking the time out of their day to show us around. That's what you get in this community. And I love it, man. I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, you pay it forward. I mean, I see you get recognized on the trails in the Northeast. You get recognized on the trails all the time. People recognize your face, they recognize your voice, they recognize the bike, and you're giving out. Well, maybe without the beard, maybe who's this guy? Yeah. Who's this guy think he is? Trail Sage? They don't know. They're not fooling me. That dude's got a beard.
That happened to me at Mount Penn this Sunday. I pulled up into the lot and this guy walks up to me. He's like, "Did anyone tell you sound like Trail Sage?" And I'm like,
no way.
Yeah, it was
Did
Floyd.
That really happen?
Floyd. Yeah, really. I swear. He came up to me. He's
awesome.
like, "Anybody tell you sound like Trail Sage?" And I'm like, "Floyd, it's me." We met.
It sounds like a bad cartoon, you know? It's like, no, it is me. I'm the real Trail Sage. And then there's another you that's like, it's not him. I'm the real Trail Sage.
Yeah.
They have to ask, they have to ask very specific questions. So, what gearing is your single speed? Only the real trail stage would know that.
Yes.
All right. Well, you do pay it forward, and people do love running into you, and you do love giving tours, and and mountain bikers are awesome. And I think people that are doing mountain bike YouTube, or a pro level rider that's just like continuing to ride and enjoys it, like, they're doing it because they love mountain biking and they love the community. And I mean, how many of our mountain bike friends are just from mountain biking? That's where you meet mountain bikers.
Yeah.
I went on a ride recently, and there was a whole bunch of friends. These guys were really good friends. They've been riding together. And I'm like, oh, so how'd you guys all meet? Oh, so-and-so met so-and-so on this trail. And then we met so-and-so. And then we all, and now they got a group. It's just like, and that's the way mountain bike groups happen. That's the way mountain bike friendships happen. And you can always meet people mountain biking. So it's awesome. We got a great sport. And then Pat, AKA Rusty Chain, another great listener and commenter. We appreciate everyone for listening and commenting. And Pat said, my favorite pro rider is Mackie Franklin. His fitness level's off the charts, and he races everything from 100-mile technical cross-country races to the mega avalanche. Plus, he rides with his wife, and I really identify with that because Pat rides with Mrs. Chain, as we know. But yeah, Mackie's a beast. I mean, the full package to be able to do 100 miles race, and then and I've seen a lot of their videos. He is a phenomenal downhiller as well, and the fitness off the charts. That's special.
Yeah, Sid and Mackie, both of them are just so talented. Great channel, by the way. They're always giving lots of race insights. So if you're into racing, definitely check out their channel because they do a ton of insights and tips on how to approach racing, nutrition. Yeah. So it's a great channel. Sid and Mackie, check them out.
Okay, moving on. We had Zan at Sploosh MTB. And he complimented for Sage for looking good on the dirt jumper. And then Zan also mountain bike channel, Sploosh MTV, and also a lanky, also a tall guy. And so he said, Dan, I need lanky insights. Every time I get on a dirt jumper, I feel like they're horrendously small, and I can't imagine hitting big jumps on it. I've hit smaller jumps on them, and they truly do fly. But man, it feels so wrong when I get one. And I agree. It is a little disconcerting to be a really tall guy on a smaller bike. Yeah. So I'll get more into that later. I've also ridden my BMX on the pump track, and that's even smaller.
Yeah.
But when these bikes are centered and dialed in, like I think we look goofier on them than we feel. And maybe, because when I see pictures of me on these small bikes, and it's like, man, that is a tall man on a little bike. Who's the tallest dirt jumper? I need to get like footage of like someone that's like really tall on these dirt jumpers and looks cool, So I'd be like, oh, okay. Maybe if I pull my socks up further, like this guy, like that'll shrink in the legs, and maybe I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Again, going back to Jeff Lenoski, I mean, he's a really big guy. And before they were making, XXL large bikes, custom made bikes for him, he was doing trials and those trials bikes are really small, and
that's true. Yeah.
It really just comes down to using your body. And while the bike may seem awkward at first, there are a lot of advantages to being tall. You can actually maneuver the bike a lot more because you have a lot more bend. The range of motion is much greater. So even though that may seem uncomfortable, you may be able to do more things on the bike because you're tall. There are going to be downsides too. I mean, I imagine you probably run into a few downsides of being too tall or too big for a feature. But in terms of moving the bike.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think if you're dynamic on the bike and you're fluid on the bike, it's probably going to look pretty good.
Yeah.
So but it's getting to that point. And when a guy like me or a guy like Zan jumps on some of these smaller bikes, it just feels it's our center of gravity is so high.
Right.
And so we have to get so low, we have to bend our knees and elbows. And when we say lanky, I mean, I think we're more arms and legs than torso. You know what I mean? It's really like intentionally getting into like finding that sweet spot, and you have to really get into it. You have to really get low. You have to be very intentional about it.
I'm wondering though, because in the last the last couple rides that you and I had together, you actually started experimenting with being more dynamic on the bike. And yes, you still get low. Of course. And that's certainly a good position, but I've seen you get high and low and really move that bike around, and I got to tell you, yeah, I don't know that getting low is a thing for you now. I really don't.
That has really started to feel really good and add a lot of confidence. And I've been riding for a long time with just kind of wrote like, all right, get low here. And I got good at it. Get low here and then just kind of like let the bike do its thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to ride with more intention. I'm just being more active on what I do, and it feels really, really good, and it's adding confidence, and I'm pretty stoked on it.
Yeah, man, you look great. You really do.
This is the part of the podcast where we ask all of our wonderful listeners to rate and subscribe. So if you haven't already, please give us a 5-star review on your podcast player.
Oh, yeah.
If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can go in and actually leave us a review. We will read those from time to time. And on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and make sure that you auto download on your podcast player, and make sure you hit the notification bell on YouTube, that little bell, so you get notifications when we come out.
Yes.
You could also just send it. You could just send it to a friend, right? I mean, if we have our
I
phones.
know where you're going with that.
You could just send it.
I thought you were like, send it. Yeah.
Dan, I thought we were telling people not to just send it. I thought we were telling them to look before they leap.
That's right.
Oh, that was a pretty good idea. Yeah. Totally confusing. Absolutely confusing. Double entendre. Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Well, tell me, we are in separate states right now. I'm in Arizona. You're in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your rides this week. From the little that we talked, it sounds like you had some pretty good rides.
Danny, it was incredible. I had an amazing week of riding. I went and we talked about paying it forward earlier in this podcast, and I got a chance to pay forward all the things that I've learned in my jump experience, which has been in the last 6 months. I went from not being able to jump at all to clearing some pretty big jumps, and doing it with a little bit of steez now, which has been incredible. Thing for myself. Just I feel so proud of where I've been. But I got a chance to pay all that forward on, I think it was Wednesday. I went to the Phoenixville Bike Park with Rob, who was explaining to me that he was struggling to get that arc on his jump. Like he just wasn't able to clear these jumps. And so we went to the Phoenixville Bike Park with the intent of getting him over that expert line. And I gave him one piece of advice that I think it clicked with him, because he was clearing everything. And that is apply the J-hop to the jump. So what I'd noticed in watching the video was he was applying this like bunny hop technique instead of a J-hop technique to the jump. And by applying the J-hop, up into the air, gave him that beautiful arc.
What's the difference between what's a bunny hop and what's a J-hop?
Yeah, so the bunny hop, as I understand it, is when you lift both tires at the same time into the air. So you're hopping the bike. The J-hop is actually a technique where you compress in and you pop with the front and then lift the back. And so it looks more like an arc. So instead of the bike coming up both wheels at the same time, you're pumping into this, which is exactly what you want on those lippy jumps. You want that feeling of like compressing and releasing up into the air and getting that beautiful arc. And so when I explained that to Rob, he started applying it to that jump, and we practiced on the blue intermediate jump line first, and then he felt great on that. We did about like 8 runs on that. We took that right over to the expert line, and he started clearing everything, man. By the end of the day, he was clearing 5, no problem. It was awesome.
Congratulations, Rob. That's awesome. Congratulations, Sage, on showing a friend, the proper technique. It always feels good to help someone out, to help a rider out.
Yeah.
That their success is our success. The stoke just gets higher and higher. So I remember when Scott had given me the tip of focus on your rear wheel. And Josh at Slanted Ground talked about this in one of his jumping videos. We look at our front wheel and we think that our front wheel is the bike, but the bike is the front and the back. It's just because we don't see the back.
Yeah.
And Scott said, focus on your rear wheel. And I started to do that. I just started to think about my rear wheel and when it was leaving the ramp, and it felt like I was going up higher. It felt like the bike was ramping up properly. And so if you're J-hopping and you're loading up that rear wheel, the front is coming off and you're loading up the rear wheel. That makes perfect sense that is going to send you straight up into the air.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, because part of that J-hop was, I said, track your back tire. So when you will be going straight up in the air and then push your front down. So once your back tire leaves the ramp, that's when you start to push the front down. You know, you're not pushing the front down before your back leaves. And again, all of this is going to depend on the jump, you know, and how big the jump is, how long the ramp is, all of these things. But for the Phoenixville Bike Park, I asked him to kind of focus in on that. So the J-hop to get the arc, and then track that back tire. And then once your back tire leaves the ramp, then start to push that front tire down to match the landing. And I got to tell you, the arc looked beautiful, Danny. It really did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How far you have come from not knowing how to jump to just coaching people, like, and then watching them 8 or 9 jumps later just start to like unlock the jumping technique. And yeah, anything's possible.
Yes.
Yeah, we are unlimited. Yeah. Yes, it is awesome. So, yeah, think about the language that you want to use in how you consider yourself of a rider, and think about that in life as well. Instead of saying I'm not someone who's any good at jumping, or I don't jump, if that's something that you want to get better at, then it's I'm good at jumping mountain bikes. I'm getting better at it. I'm not good at it yet. This is something that I'm going to be really good at it, and I feel it happening. And so you start using that language. One of Zan's comments was, that he was laughing that my term of when I fell at Natalie, that it was not my preference to fall off of that mountain. You know, and he was laughing at that, and it's just like it's really hard to come up with with good language around such a catastrophic event. Yeah, it wasn't my preference. And I couldn't think of any other way to say it that didn't like lower the vibe about it, So it's just like, that's just it's not what I wanted to happen, but it happened. And because it happened, all these other positive things happened. So I'm finding something to appreciate in something that I really didn't want to happen, would never choose to happen again. But because that happened, we had all those conversations about being dynamic and intentional. And you made the video. I was talking about being too far back, and I thought that was a proper technique for steeps, was getting further and further back. And we had that conversation, and you made the whole video about how you ride, and you showed Aaron and Patrick and Rylan and all those guys. You showed their technique, and they were all staying centered, and it just like clicked in my head. And now I'm using that, and I'm a better rider today because of all that. And that could have just been me falling off the mountain and getting hurt. It could have just been that and being pissed about that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm finding other things to appreciate about that happening.
Yeah.
There's always things to appreciate. And when we find things to appreciate about what things that we would label as bad, we take the energy out of them. And we talked about that on the Halloween episode, taking the energy away from something, and keeping it for ourselves.
Yeah. You have 2 options at that point, and you've gone through 2 in the last year. You've gone through 2 crashes. One led to a serious injury, and the other one was just a eye opener. But in both cases, you had the option to walk away. You had the option of saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Or you had the option of saying, okay, what can I learn from this experience? And in both cases, you've changed. You've changed as a person. You've changed as a rider. This podcast doesn't exist without you destroying your face. I mean, folks, you should have seen his face before. You think he's handsome now? No, but seriously, this podcast doesn't happen without you going through that crash, and you becoming a better rider doesn't happen without you crashing off of that mountain. Now, I don't want to see you crashing every time to see you improve, but you had a choice to make there, and you chose to see the opportunity to grow and get better. And that's tremendous, Danny.
When we frame life as everything happens for me and not to me, and we stop being a victim of things that happened and everything is happening for me, so what can I find to appreciate out of this experience? Then it just changes the perspective of everything that you're going through. If you're sitting in traffic, if you're dealing with, a difficult situation at work or at home with family or money, well, this is happening for me. So what am I going to learn out of this? What is here for me to make that's going to make this all worthwhile, and I'm going to come out of this better than ever. And you start holding that space, man, I mean, life just really starts to kind of flow and open up. And in the mountain bike world, 100%, you take that energy to the trails and see what happens. And as I say all the time, I feel like we're living proof, and as far as what we're doing, and including making this podcast. So, but let's do it without crashing. 100%. Yeah. Let's do it without crashing. Let's do it without falling off a mountain. Let's do it without breaking faces. Yes. So, maybe I had a belief system. I did have belief system in there that you had to go through hard times to have good times. That you had to earn, everything needed to be earned. And if something good was going to happen, then something bad happened. If something bad happened, then I really deserve something good.
Yeah.
And that's a fine belief system, but then you have to go through all this bad stuff, quote unquote, like, things that you don't prefer to get these lessons. And so I'm working on changing my belief system to ease and grace, and that I'm worthy. I'm already worthy of all good things. I'm already worthy of being a good rider. I'm already worthy of having fun on a bike and having fun with my friends. I don't need anything bad to happen first. So all these lessons can come with ease and grace. And guess what? If you're listening to this podcast, you're listening for a reason. You are getting our lessons of ease and grace. And if this is resonating to you, then ease and grace your way to mountain bike progression and to flow in life.
We've done all the falling and failing for you.
We have broken faces and broken backs and broken hands, so you don't have to. You're welcome.
Right. You're welcome.
You're welcome. It's okay.
Oh boy.
It's okay. We did it for you. You're welcome. This is how our commitment to the mountain bike universe. When Sage was laying in the hospital with a broken back, right. 4 years ago, Danny, at some point we're going to have an audience and they're going to really appreciate this. I just want you to know. I just want you to know. I was like, what are you talking about? Can we cut down the pain meds on this guy? Right and left. Yes. All right. I love it. Well, one of the really interesting things that I saw about that ride at Phoenixville Bike Park for you was that someone must have broken into your house, stolen all of your bikes, only left your old Geo single speed.
Oh man.
So what happened? Someone stole your bikes and you couldn't take anything but the single speed? Like, that's crazy.
I got to tell you, man. Yeah, I had this. So that didn't happen on Rob's ride, but I took my single speed out on Sunday and Saturday. I went back to the Phoenixville Bike Park on Saturday and jumped the single speed to see how that would feel. And then I took that experience and I said, could I apply that to Skyline? And I got to tell you, mind blown. First of all, my want for a dirt jumper has like skyrocketed. It's definitely, I want a dirt jumper before I want an e-bike at this point. The benefits of learning on that kind of a bike to me, I think are invaluable. And what I learned was my single speed is not a dirt jumper. Like that old Geo was definitely frightening, but it was really cool to see how the bike reacts to you on those jumps. I can see why you enjoy taking the Banshee to the Phoenixville Bike Park. Up until this point, I'd only been taking my Ibis, and every so often I'd be tooling around on someone's dirt jumper or on a small BMX. But, having the single speed, and that's all I had, forcing myself to do run after run after run after run, it got me used to compressing and using my body to its fullest extent to clear these jumps. And to me, that was eye-opening. And I definitely have my eye on a dirt jumper at this point. So yeah, I'm super excited. And before I forget, when I was at Mount Penn, I ran into Floyd and Jordan.
Yes, I remember those guys. Yeah.
Yes.
That was a father-son that we met early in our practicing of the 5 jumps. We met Floyd and Jordan. Floyd was on an e-bike, and that was one of those, we had already demoed the e-bikes. I think we had already been blown away by them, but Floyd telling us his story of coming out and being able to ride with his son and everything he had been through. And then he got the e-bike and he's out there and he's riding with his son and they're practicing jumps together. And they were both really cool dudes. And it was just really an awesome story. So you saw those guys again and you were on your single speed this time at the jumps?
Unfortunately or fortunately, they didn't want to see the jumps. They wanted to tech. So when I got to the lot and he was like, does anyone tell you that you sound like Trail Sage? I was like, Floyd, it's me. It's your boy. It's Roy.
He was texting the real Trail Sage. Yo, there's an imposter.
By the way,
This dude, yeah. I think it might be artificial intelligence. This might be an android. He's got your. He's like, Trail Sage, there's artificial intelligence in the parking lot right now.
Yeah. Yes, this was the single speed version of Trail Sage, but they said they wanted a tour of the tech. So, I took the single speed. You know me, I'm comfortable on the tech on the single speed. So I was like, absolutely. So we took them down. We did like double down and all that stuff. And it was interesting to see their reactions to those features that you and I have come to love so much, and it was, I think the experience was really eye-opening in the sense that, this is where they'd like to get to, and both of them were kind of struggling in different spots. Jordan does not have an e-bike, so his struggles were a little bit different from Floyd's struggles where, Floyd would have no problem, getting up onto some of the features because, you have the power assist of the motor, but then having to pull that bike up, and maneuver the bike was a little bit more harder for him. So, just a really awesome day, Danny. And like I said, I got a lot from that single speed ride and just truly grateful, man. Truly grateful.
Well, I don't know how much time you want to spend on this, but I have more questions about jumping to single speed. So it's really old geo. You really sit on top of the bike. We've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
You look at a dirt jumper, even like my Banshee, but I mean, if you look at a dirt jumper, the seat doesn't come up. The seat stays all the way down.
Yeah.
BMX bike, the seat stays all the way down. You're jumping your mountain bike, you are lowering your dropper post as far down as possible. And you do have a small dropper on the single speed, but there's just no way to get that seat low enough to make it comfortable for jumping.
That's right.
What did it feel like in the air? Did you feel like you were like easier to dead sailor? And then when in the beginning, I'm sure you must have cased. I mean, how scary is it casing when you're not only on a hardtail, but on a hardtail where your weight's already more far forward than I think you probably want it?
The weight was not the issue. The issue was really around that seat, Danny. You absolutely nailed it. If you look at the geometry of a dirt jumper, they are sloped. Like if you look, not the rake. Let's not think. I don't want to get it twisted. The rake is still very steep on a dirt jumper, right? Like you're still looking at like a 69, maybe 70-degree head angle tube. The rake is the angle of the fork, so it's pretty steep on a dirt jumper. It's going to be in that 68 to like 70-degree head angle tube. That's not the difference. The difference is on the frame of a dirt jumper, it slopes back from that head angle all the way back to your seat stay. It's one beautiful slope down. Like if you look at it, it looks like a beautiful triangle. On our old Geo bikes, that almost goes straight across. That seat was like hitting me in the rear end. Like it was very hard to maneuver the bike and kind of get steezy. I'm putting air quotes up there because it was really hard to maneuver that bike and do a table. You know how we were trying to move that bike underneath us to the side? It's really hard to do that on the single speed because the seat kept, hitting my leg, hitting my butt. And that was very noticeable right from the start, Danny.
Yeah, but what about clear? So were you clearing the jumps right away? I mean, I would be worried about casing on that bike. And by casing, I mean your back tire is not clearing the end of the jump. Your back tire is hitting the end of the jump.
Yeah. After our lesson on Dominion, I did my pre-ride and purposely cased everything.
Upper Dominion at Mountain Creek Bike Park. Dan, like all of a sudden I'm referring to myself in the third person. The lanky known as Dan said that pre-rides are for suckers, and he went ahead and went full send, which ended up in a full rotation, upside down landing. Yes.
Another lesson learned.
Anyways,
yes, of course.
And for anyone that was a while ago, just to remind everyone. So so you were doing pre-ride on these jumps.
I did a pre-ride, purposely cased everything. The re-ride, I cleared 2 and cased 5 on purpose. And then at Mount Penn, on the free ride, no, at Phoenixville Bike Park.
Oh, at Phoenixville. Okay.
Yeah. And then on
they
3,
both have 5.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. And on 3, I just went for it. And on Mount Penn, same thing. I just, when it was time to go, Danny, I said what I told myself a while ago, which is if you're going to do it, do it. You know, the worst thing to do is half commit. And so I just went for it.
Yeah.
I cased 4 pretty bad. It wasn't until that last run that I finally cleared 4. Like I was committing to it, but it just scared the bejesus out of me. You know, you're like you said, that bottom bracket is also really high on that old Geo bike. And so you really feel like you're riding on top of the bike as opposed to in the bike. And it was a really dead sailery type of feel when you're going off of this thing and you're so it did
on top
feel
of that. You did feel more.
Oh yeah, you definitely feel that. You absolutely feel that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Equipment matters. RideLaugh1 at Gmail, YouTube comments. Do you have a dirt jumper? What's your favorite bike to jump? Have you tried jumping on dirt jumpers, BMX? Have you only done mountain bike? And who's riding an older bike? Who's riding an older Geo bike? Or who learned how to ride on an older bike? Or who learned how to jump on an older bike? What are your jump stories? What are your bike stories? RideLaugh1 at Gmail and YouTube comments. Absolutely. That's fascinating. The old Geo, I mean, it almost feels like a 10-speed. Like you're really sitting on top of that bike. And you know what? Talk about like looking cool on any bike. You know, when we were talking about earlier, we were talking about me being too lanky for these and Zan being too lanky for these little bikes. Have you ever seen these YouTube videos where guys are like on gravel or road bikes and they're going through like downhill jump lines and they're just like clearing everything on a road bike in the drop bars? Have you and looking amazing doing it? So yeah, absolutely. Anything is possible. And you can look cool. If you're good at it, you're going to look cool. It's going to look good.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Speaking of looking cool, it looked like you had a couple good rides in your neck of the woods as well, my friend.
Yeah, I'm used to solo rides out here, which I love. I like going out, and I've met people on rides and done a couple of segments here and there with them. But our awesome listener, Jeff Jackson MTB, and he's got a channel, and check him out on Instagram also. And but he's always listening. He's always leaving really funny, insightful comments.
Yeah,
and he's an Arizona rider, and so he invited me on a ride with his buddies, and they were going to Hawes. And they were pre-riding for an Enduro race, which is next week. So I got to meet Jeff's friends from that day, and they were awesome. There was Steve and AJ and Vaughn, and there was another Jeff. And these guys were all really, really high-level riders. I don't think that you can ride in Arizona all the time and not just become like a high-level rider. I think the average rider here is a pretty high-level rider. You know, I saw Jeff posted something on Instagram today about, you know, the average rider. And I was like, no, dude, you're not an average rider. You just did a double black diamond tech trail, you know? And so I got to ride with Jeff. He's awesome. We got to have a lot of great conversation on the trail. His friends were awesome. He's a really good rider.
Yeah.
His buddies were all, I mean, some of his friend Steven was one of the best riders I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he was the first one up all the climbs on flats. And then he was sending things that I didn't think were sendable. He was gapping things. He was jumping into things. I mean, he's not racing. And the other guys were like, yeah, Steven's just like another league. He's just one of the best riders in the Valley. And the other guys were all really good, varying levels of really good.
Yeah.
And as we're going through Boulder Dash, I've been through this trail before. It's a double black diamond tech trail. It's got some jumps. It's got some gaps, but almost everything has a ride around. But all the steeps, like some of the steeps, you just have to ride them, you know, or you can walk it. And they were stopping at all the features and just saying, what's going to be the fastest line through here? And then sessioning it. And sometimes they would ride both lines. One guy would ride one line, the other guy would ride the same line, and they would see which one was faster. They would see who would finish it quicker.
Oh, that's interesting.
Very serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were very serious about like finding out what the fastest line was. So this was kind of like a scout ride for them. And for me, I haven't really, I've never ridden Boulder Dash with locals. I've never seen people point out other lines. I saw lines that I hadn't seen before. I rode lines that I had seen, but I hadn't ridden before. So it was really cool to just see people ride different things. And I saw people do the jumps and do some of these gap jumps that like the one step down jump that I haven't done. And I was like, okay, I can definitely do that. I didn't do it that day because I'm worthy. I had nothing to prove. I wasn't completely confident. So I was like, okay, but this isn't my wheelhouse. I saw them do the on off You know what I'm talking about? That little,
lily pad.
It's a rock lily pad. Yeah. So AJ and Steven both did it. Steven, amazing. AJ also like unbelievable downhiller. And, we're talking that it really wasn't that hard. So, Steven jumped over the whole thing. I wasn't there for it, but they were talking about it. At one point, he skipped the lily pad and he jumped over the whole thing. So that's what they were talking about as being hard. Like the lily pad was no problem. But yeah, I mean, just really good riders. It was really fun. It was really cool connecting with them and seeing these guys ride. And they all, they were all buddies from riding. They had just met each other over the years, become friendly, and they were out there having a good time and getting ready to race. So I wish them all good luck.
Man, that is tremendous. So in your opinion, when you were getting up to these technical features and they're picking lines, what features were raceable and what weren't? Like, what was the overall synopsis of that? Like, oh yeah, on these types of features, it was better to go around. Like, what was your feeling on all that stuff?
So they had a few where they were skipping. Like in the beginning, you could go over a couple of rock rolls. They just ignored that. There's a notch that you could go through instead. So you're just like straight lining past anything that you can.
Okay.
Right away, you're not doing the most fun version of the ride. You're just straight lining as much as you can. There's one portion where there's a drop all the way over to the right that I haven't done before. And they didn't even look at that because that's going to slow you down. So again, just right through the easiest line, just straight lining it. And for some of those, when I was doing them, I was like, I'm not doing that line. I'm picking my way through and riding it. It's fun. It's difficult.
Yeah.
I'm not adding another level of difficulty to it to be the fastest as possible because I'm not racing. I'm not racing the Enduro. I was just out there to ride.
Yeah. And when you're done that ride, you always send me your footage. And I was looking through a lot of the footage, and it's really interesting because the tech lines, or what you call the steeps, they're often straighter than the alt lines that are either on the right or left. And what was interesting was, even though the tech line was straighter, because of how technical it was, you couldn't just like fly down this thing. And in some cases, it'd be faster to do the go around.
The other thing is that they weren't sure what was going to be taped off.
Oh,
so they weren't sure if some of the go arounds might be taped off. So they kind of defaulted to they're not going to tape off the hard line.
Yeah.
The go around might be faster. And if it's open, we'll take it. But we're going to session the fastest way through this just in case that's taped off.
Yeah.
Because there's just no way for them to know until race day what exactly is going to be taped off. And then they were also doing there are a couple spots where you could do tech, you could do a ride around, or you could do a drop. And we have video of Steven towing Vaughn. It doesn't look like much on the video, but it's up over a big rock. The go around is much slower. And if you go over this big rock, then you can drop it. And it's kind of like the drop that we do at Mount Penn on the network.
Yes.
And a drop that's facing down is scarier than a drop that's straight out. And then it goes right into a turn.
Oh.
So on Boulder Dash, that's oftentimes the hardest part, is that you're right into a sandy wash. You're right into a turn. So Vaughn had done one of these earlier in the day for the first time.
Wow.
And it's not that big, but it's just awkward looking. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, I see how it's doable. I'm not doing that today. And then later on, he was able to take that same experience. He was stacking wins, and he followed Steven through this other line with a much steeper, more significant downward facing drop. And he did it for the first time. And he turned around and he was like, it's a piece of cake. I don't know why I haven't been doing it. Like when you do things well.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything feels good. And you're like, yeah, why wasn't I always doing this? But you got to work your way up to it. For me, it was invaluable to see it. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So
I was going to say, so you did a second ride though at South Mountain this time, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So how was that?
Our buddy Chris Garland, who we have mountain biked with before, and he's a Trail Stage Patreon member, and he's a listener, and he's a great dude. He texted me that one of his really good riding buddies was going to be in Arizona, and could I recommend a place to rent a bike, and would I be available on Monday to show him around? And I'll recommend the bike rental, and I'm going to see what I can do about actually being available. And it worked out. And so we met, and his name's Antoine. And I said, well, if you're coming to Arizona and you're only in Phoenix for a day or two, you got to check out National Trail. I mean, it's kind of like I feel like it's the most iconic of the riding around here.
Yeah.
And it's so different than anything that you've ever seen. Riding National Trail on South Mountain, I say it's like the moon up there. It's just like craggly and barren, and there's some plant life and cactus. But if you've ridden it before, and if you haven't, definitely check it out. But if you've ridden it before, it feels like another planet. It really is just a crazy, crazy terrain, and it's very ledgy. It's got a lot of steeps. It's got but it's all rideable. It's all really cool. Tons of alt lines. And so he's starting to get the hang of it a little bit, but it's a lot of climbing in the beginning. And we get about halfway out. We get to Buena Vista, and I said, a lot of people turn around here. Most people turn around here and they rip back down National. It takes about a half an hour and it's super fun. Or we can keep going out. We can go all the way out to Telegraph, which is what I like to do, but it's another hour.
Yep.
And he was like, well, I'm here.
Love it.
My man, let's do it. So we keep on riding, and the second half of National on that route is almost it's chunkier. It's chunkier, and there's a lot of exposure. And I'm slowing down, and I'm just like, just stay on my line, and everything rolls. And I can just hear him getting more and more confident behind me. He's just clearing things. He's walking once in a while, but he's going for it. He's going for it. And he's getting that confidence. And he's like, he's just starting to feel better and better. Like I can feel the vibration of the ride going up. I can feel the stoke going up. Every time I turn around, he's got a big grin on his face. He's just so excited. Yeah. And so we're just really having a lot of fun. We get to this one part of the ride where there's a incredibly hard right-hand turn climb that I've never made before. And then right after that, you make a hard left, and it's another incredibly hard climb that I've never made before, that I only realized last time I was out here that it's even doable. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
So Antoine and I make this really hard left. Neither of us get this climb. It's like more of like it's almost like a technical section. It's not that big of a climb, but it's just really difficult. And we're stopped for a minute, and we hear another rider coming, and this guy comes through. He gets like 80% of it. And I was like, he went right over the line. Instead of going around, I always pick the way around. He went right over this rock that's in the way, and it's big.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think I can get this. I can get this. And so he turns around and he sessions it, and he comes through in a different gear, and he gets it.
Unbelievable.
And as he's riding by us, really strong. And as he's riding by us, he's riding to the next one. And I was like, well, the next one's even harder. So if you get both of these, I'm buying you a beer. And he's going pretty slow because he's going uphill. And he turns around and he looks at me and he's like, I'm only 17, dude. I was like, well, I might have to do something illegal, So, that's buying the beer. If for anyone that was thinking anything else, that was buying the beer.
Just to be clear. Yeah.
I'm going to have to kill you. Well, I'm going to have to steal your bike. Sorry. Not my fault you're 17. Yeah. Right. So sure enough, he gets 90% up that incredibly difficult climb, and he stalls at the top. And I was like, whew, I don't have to buy him beer. But he rolls back down. He's going to try it again. So this time I scramble over and I get onto a rock and I record him, and second try, and he powers through this thing and he gets all the way up it. It was awesome. So turns out his name's Sean. Super nice young man. He's a local. He's a racer, and to see a young guy sessioning climbs. We talked about that dog mentality, and is the e-bike's going to ruin this? That mentality. People, the joy of climbing, the joy of clearing a technical climb. And here was a 17-year-old guy that was sessioning climbs and crushing them and feeling really good about it. And it was just awesome to see. And then he was a super nice guy. And he was like, I'll stick with you guys until, because he was riding like all of National. His route was crazy.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm here with Antoine. I'm showing him lines. I'm not going to be going super fast. And he was like, cool. But just a really, really great guy and really good rider. I did get to follow him down some of the downhills, and solid lines, solid rider. He's on a relatively short travel XC bike. But yeah, Sean, he was a cool dude. I'll put his Instagram on the show notes, and you could see what he's up to. But really, really cool dude. Very impressive climber. So it was cool. It was a great ride. And then and Antoine was killing it. He was getting more confident. I think he was just like following me into things that he normally wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
But he was just getting confident and feeling better and better. And he was trusting me because I was kept telling him things were rollable. I wasn't, I was being honest with him. And afterwards he was, he was just so stoked. So really, really nice guy, really good rider. I was like, dude, skills are in there. So we talk about it all the time, right? Skills are in there. So, but it was really cool. And that's just a wonderful part of mountain biking is being able to show people trails that and watch them be stoked on it and have a high vibe ride. And Antoine was a great dude. And we gotta get you out here, and we gotta get Chris Garland out here. And there's some great riding out here. Yeah. So. It was really fun. It was really fun. So thanks, Chris, for introducing me to your buddy, and Antoine. I'm glad you had fun, and thanks for riding with me. It was a good time.
Fantastic, Danny. We are running up on it. Do you want to get to your gratitude?
Well, so my mountain bike gratitude of the week is going to be my ride with my girls at the Desert Trails Bike Park. And I'm not going to make it to Desert Trails Bike Park just yet because I know that's going to be a gratitude down the road. But this day with my girls, we've been back and forth in Arizona, and we've never had bikes out here and for them. And we've never had a car that could carry bikes. And now we do have bikes out here that they can ride, and we do have a bike rack. And so it was like, finally, I was like, we can go do bike stuff together. And we went to this place called Desert Trails Bike Park. It's like when you first start, it's got a little tiny pump track with some skill section, like teeter totters and some berms. And we were practicing on that. And that's what we thought was there. And I knew there was jump lines that they weren't going to want to do. And I said, well, let's go look at the beginner jump line. I want to look at it. And so I rolled through the beginner jump line. And at the bottom of the beginner jump line is like a pump track, a full pump track.
Yes.
And it's not huge, but it's a great beginner level pump track.
Yeah.
And they just loved playing on this thing. So Ella, who's 13, and Summer, who's 11, when we haven't ridden bikes together in a long time, it's something that we used to enjoy doing a lot more. And this summer, the last 6 months of my life, has just been crazy. And so we all got to ride bikes together, and they were just getting so excited at their wins. And Summer was excited. She's not quite standing up on the bike yet. So she's still sitting down a lot. But when she was getting over rollers, when she got through the pump track without a dab, she was really excited. And she's really excited to now get out on her bike and take it in the driveway and practice standing. And Ella, who's just a natural, and I've taken her to the Phoenixville Bike Park, and she really wanted to learn how to jump. And so she really started to, and she's ridden the backyard pump track with me a lot more. And so she really started to unlock the pumping on the pump track, and she was loving it. Yeah. And then Ella looked at the beginner line, and she's like, Daddy, do you think I can roll through it? And I said, I do. I think you could totally roll through it. And she was just like, not today. And I was so proud of her that using her intuition, she wants to do it. She wants to go back. That wasn't the day.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't, I gave her so much compliments throughout the, afterwards. And, we went and got breakfast, and we were talking about it, and the stoke was high. So that day with my girls, being on bikes with my girls, that's my gratitude, is having that, being able to share that with my family and have them be excited about mountain bikes again was really awesome.
Yeah, I know Ella is pretty good on the bike. I've seen her on the pump track before, and at the Phoenixville Bike Park. I'd like to figure out how we can get Summer off her seat. Like if she could learn to stand on that bike. And I'm wondering, is there a way that you could get her on a really small bike? And the reason why I'm saying that is, if you make it really uncomfortable to sit, maybe that would force you to stand. You know what I mean? Like,
that's
put her
so
on the
funny,
BMX.
Because she's been riding around the neighborhood.
Yes.
And she said, Daddy, can you raise my seat up? It's really low. I have it dropped all the way. We had it dropped all the way for the pump track. She said, Can you raise my seat up? And I was like, well, I could, but we're practicing standing. So you let me know. If you need me to raise it because it's really uncomfortable. But, if we're practicing standing.
Yeah, right.
Then you don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that BMX, because the way that BMX seat is, it's really not meant to sit. Like, the only reason why that seat is there is when you're stopped and you put your feet out, in front of you, and you sit on that seat. but it's not meant, you cannot sit on that seat and pedal. It's near impossible. Your knees would be hitting I wonder if you put her on the BMX, if she would naturally have to stand in order to move that bike.
I think she's going to be more comfortable on her own bike. I think like anything, especially in the bike world, Summer is very much like me. She doesn't have that that intuition where things click right away. Ella's more like her mom. She's just like a natural athlete. She figures things out really quickly. And for Summer, I think she just needs to ride, and she just needs to stand, and she just needs to start finding that balance point of where standing feels good. But I think it's just like Phoenixville Bike Park, where you're just like, okay, now I know I can do this. I just have to get off the brakes.
One more point, because I know we're up against it, but one more point. What about putting her on and I'm talking a very, very slight incline. We're talking 1 or 2 degrees, but in a situation where she doesn't have to pedal, like on a pump track. Okay, I get it. You don't have to pedal, but now you're forcing yourself to do all this action. If you're on flat ground, then you're forcing yourself to pedal. What if it was a slight decline and all she had to do was stand on the pedal and not pedal, just literally stand on the pedal and just kind of modulate brake and just go down this hill? So there's nothing involved except to stand. There's no pedaling. There's no pumping. There's no sit stand. It's just literally go down and get used to standing on the pedals. What about something like that? Would that work?
That could work. I think she stands, but she doesn't stand up tall. And that's something that we've been practicing, is like, she'll get her butt off the seat, but it's like, okay, taller, like stand up all the way,
nervous.
And,
yeah. Right.
Yeah. And she'll get it. And I think that's a really good idea. I think having a straightaway where even if it's flat, there's a lot of flat here in Phoenix, even if it's flat, we could build up a little bit of speed, and then they'll say, okay, we're just going to coast and we're just going to stand for the next 20 seconds. We're just going to stand up tall and feel comfortable. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff, man. I absolutely love seeing that. I love seeing the videos of your girls having a good time and smiling and enjoying time with daddy. So that's good. For my gratitude, I'm going to make that my ride with my Patreon member. And this gratitude is actually to all my Patreon members, but it's inspired by Steve Rabel, who wrote in. He was the guy that did the Escalade drop for the first time. And he called me up the other day and he was like, listen, I'm going to be in the area. Would you give me a tour of Mount Penn? And man, we had so much fun, Danny. And I got to tell you, Steve is an amazing rider. This guy was so good that he did No Joke first try. And if you know No Joke at Mount Penn, it is called No Joke because this thing is legit serious. He did it from top all the way to bottom, first try. I was blown away. Steve was unbelievable. And it ended up being an amazing day. And the reason why it's my gratitude and it is not just for Steve. It's the fact that I've gotten to do these types of rides of taking out some of my Patreon members in the last 2 or 3 months. I've taken out several. I've been able to pay it back. You said pay it forward. I've been able to pay back some of my Patreon members for all their support over the years. So my gratitude goes out to all my Patreon supporters that have made all of this possible, because this is literally how I make my living, is through Patreon. And it meant a lot to me. And it was great to meet Steve. And we had an awesome time. I hope Steve had a good time, because I sure did. But thank you to all of my Trail Sage Tribe Patreon members. I really appreciate all your support.
That's awesome. I saw a video of your ride with Steve. I saw some that you shot on Strava. On Strava, I saw some video that you posted. I saw his Instagram, and he was riding. Yeah, some of the really, really gnarly tech at Mount Penn. Really confident. He looked really centered. He definitely knows what he's doing. You don't do the No Joke line if you have any doubt. No, it is a far fall off of that cliff. We call it Cliff Cleveland. That's a very, very legitimate line with a couple of like crazy looking skinnies afterwards. So that's awesome. And good job, Steve. It's funny when we heard that he was scared of doing the Escalade drop at Rocky Ridge, I just figured that he was like an advanced intermediate rider, you know, and then when you said how amazing he was at Mount Penn, it was like, no, that was just something that was in his head, because this dude could do everything. He's an amazing rider.
You're exactly right. I drew an assumption. I was like, okay, Escalade drop. I mean, that is a really tough drop, by the way. But
Yes.
It's
a downward sloping drop.
It's a downward. Yes. Right. And so I just assumed that he was, so I just assumed he was like intermediate advanced level. He was way better than intermediate advanced. Like this guy, he did a D Snyder. He did that with the teeter totter skinny. No problem. God. Like this guy, it's so talented. Yes. And we had a blast, man. So thank you, Steve. Awesome. I mean, unbelievable. Yes.
Yeah. That's really cool. We're unlimited. Anything's possible. Everyone, we're like I said before, we're all heading towards that pro level. We could all be as good as we want to be.
Oh yeah.
I do love your relationship with your Patreon members. You appreciate everyone that supports you so much. I thought it was interesting last week when we were talking and you were talking about Mark who broke his shoulder.
Yeah.
And you just nonchalantly said, he's a Patreon member. So of course I talked to him, and I'm thinking, I don't think most creators would just say, of course I'm talking to him, like if you want to support Trail Sage, and there's going to be ways to support Ride and Laugh in the future. Right now, we're just asking you to share the videos or to share the YouTube and to share the podcast, which is just spreading the word. There will be ways to support us in the future. We'd love to have merch, and we're going to have we're going to have our own Patreon. We're going to have all sorts of things. We have all sorts of ideas. And Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments. If you have any ideas for those ideas, we're open to it. Absolutely. Yeah. Let us know.
We're incorporated.
Yeah, that's right. We're legitimate. Yeah. So, and we want to keep making this podcast. And so we do need to start making some money. But Sage has his channel, his Trail Sage channel, and it's fantastic. If you enjoy it and for I think $5 a month, be a Patreon member, support any of these YouTube creators. It just makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I think your gratitude is awesome this week. And I know how much you appreciate all of your Patreon members. It's a great channel. I'm happily and proudly a Patreon member.
Yes.
And look what that got me. You might get your own podcast with this guy. Oh, we just jumped the shark with the Patreon. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for auto downloading. Thank you for telling your friends. We appreciate you. We have gratitude for you. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful week of riding, ride, and laugh.
I'll see you, everyone.